Okay, let's just talk about it. Let's just talk about it. Yeah, that's it. We're just going to talk about it. Yeah. Okay. Oxalates. It's a dirty, dirty word. Everybody's talking about oxalates. Please, get to it.
Well, so, oxalates have kind of gotten a bad rap here recently, for reasons we'll talk about in a minute. But, so first of all, oxalates in the human body, they come from several sources. We can actually make oxalates ourselves. Oxalates can come as a natural byproduct of vitamin C metabolism, but most of the oxalates in the human body actually come from our diet. And we find oxalates naturally in plants, mainly green leafy vegetables, but you can also find them in nuts and seeds and cocoa and things like that. And so oxalates they're very tiny microscopic crystals that help they help the plant as part of the plant's natural defense mechanism against predators like insects and things like that.
Well, then what's the concern about them?
Well, so some people are concerned that oxalates are what we call an anti-nutrient. And the reason is oxalates will bind with calcium in our intestine, so we can't absorb that calcium. And in theory, if we're eating a lot of oxalates, we're not getting enough calcium, and then we'll get osteoporosis and such as that. But the bigger concern is, just like that, those oxalates can bind with calcium in our gut so they're not absorbed. It can also bind with oxalate in our urinary tract, which can lead to calcium oxalate kidney stones.
Yeah. No thanks.
Right.
I've heard stories about how painful that is.
Never had one. Seen lots of patients with it. Wouldn't want to wish that on my worst enemy. Very, very painful.
Okay, so that begs the question: people who have a history of kidney stones, do they need to be following a low oxalate diet?
Right. So about 80% of kidney stones are oxalate stones. So that's the vast majority. So if you've had a history of oxalate stones, in the past, we oftentimes did recommend a low oxalate diet. And what that means is we're trying to limit your total oxalate intake. But now most experts recognize that it's not the total oxalate intake we need to worry about. It's avoiding high oxalate foods. So high oxalate foods are defined is foods that have greater than 50 milligrams per serving. And so some of the biggest ones are things like spinach and Swiss chard and beets and beet greens.
Well, if these are high oxalate foods, how can they also be nutritious for us?
Well, they are nutritious. So the question, real question is, how can we continue to consume these foods and minimize the whatever adverse effects there might be from the oxalates? So first of all, as I mentioned earlier, if you want to avoid absorbing so much oxalate into your bloodstream, by consuming plenty of calcium in your diet, that calcium will bind the oxalates, where we pass it out the other end, so it's not available to be absorbed. And so we need about 800 to 1,200 milligrams of calcium a day, somewhere in there. What's interesting is that it has been shown, research suggests that when we get our oxalates from food as opposed to supplements, that's the case. Taking pill supplements actually may increase your risk for kidney stones.
Oh.
Yeah. So we also know that oxalates are naturally broken down by healthy gut bacteria. So maintaining a healthy gut microbiome, if you will. So that's, following a high fiber, low fat, plant forward diet with all those prebiotics to maintain a healthy gut microbiome. So again, we break down some of those oxalates naturally. We know that drinking lots and lots and lots of water is important, because if you imagine when you get dehydrated, your urine concentrates.
Right.
So that's much more likely that the calcium and the oxalates will get together and form a stone. Yes. So by diluting your urine, it will minimize that effect. You also have to be careful about taking too much vitamin C. As I mentioned earlier, vitamin C can be metabolized to oxalates, and it's been shown that vitamin C consumption above about 1,000 milligrams a day can predispose you to kidney stones. Now, to put that into perspective, it doesn't mean you've got to stop eating oranges, right?
Yeah, that's not going to happen.
Right. So red bell pepper, great source of vitamin C, a cup of orange juice. Both of those have about 100 milligrams of vitamin C. An orange has about 70 milligrams. So it's pretty easy to avoid, that 1,000 milligram level if you're not taking a supplement.
Okay, so if we need to just cook these down in order to eat them safely,
Right. So that's probably the most important point,
Yeah.
right? So the best way to control oxalates is how we cook these foods, right?
Yeah, I have read that, so
Right.
I'm glad you're touching on it.
So we know that boiling, blanching, soaking green leafy vegetables will significantly lower the oxalate concentration. And in fact, you take Swiss chard or spinach, you boil it for 1 to 3 minutes, very short period of time, reduces the oxalate concentration by 85%.
Oh, fantastic. Okay, well, great, because this bowl of spinach has plans in our next recipe.
Oh, I can't wait.
So let's get cooking. Listen to that sizzle. Doesn't it smell great in here?
It does.
Okay, what we're making today is a lentil dal. And I've already toasted whole cumin seeds, and until the place started to smell
right.
so good, and the little seeds popped a little bit. I didn't put any oil in, but I did put just a little bit of water in, so they wouldn't burn. Then I chopped an onion, a yellow onion, and got that nice and brown, golden. And next part of this is we're going to add in some fresh ginger.
Right.
Just using a microplane.
And you know, every time you do that, I tell you that that's the greatest, one of the greatest culinary tips I ever learned, because, you know, I'd always buy ginger and I'd use some and I'd put it in the refrigerator and I'd come back for it, you know, a few weeks later and it'll all be shriveled up and no good.
No good.
And you say, you don't have to do that, just put it in the freezer and just take it out frozen whole and just grate it right
That's
in
right.
when you need to peel it. And I'm like, holy cow. So now a big knob of ginger like that will last me months.
Yeah.
So if you're not doing it now, freeze your ginger.
Freeze your ginger. And also, the same goes for garlic. You can keep that in the freezer and mince that. And it minces so well on a microplane.
Yeah.
Because it's really hard, right?
Yeah. Well, the
I know.
ginger smells so good too.
And let's do one more, because I think that we're going to need one more. Let's do half. Okay. So that is going to cook down this, you know, it's just very delicate flavors here, so it won't take long. And then we're adding some green chilies in here.
A little heat.
Yep, that we've cut and split open, right? And I'm going to add a little bit of water just so that we don't have any burning in there. And then you can just deglaze, right? And dals are so wonderful. They're almost just so forgiving, right? You can use different types of split lentils and or split peas and split lentils, I guess,
Right.
yeah. And Indian, I love Indian cooking. It's a very quick cook, and there's lots of flavors in there.
Well, if I'm not mistaken, that's what dal means.
Well,
it means
yeah.
a split pulse, whether it be a lentil or a mung bean or whatever it might be.
Yeah. Oh, can you smell that heat from that
Yeah,
fresh
yeah.
chili?
Chili, yeah.
All right, so next I'm going to put in turmeric, and this is ground turmeric, and just some hot chili flakes.
Yep.
So we'll put that in there and toast those just for, a few seconds until we can really smell it. Ooh, there it is. There it is.
Oop, there it is.
And then crushed tomato, or I should say cut up tomatoes. This was 2 tomatoes, just chopped up.
But you could use you could use diced tomatoes.
You could.
These are fresh, though. We got at the farmer's market.
That's right. And, oh, by the way, you always want to make sure that when you're cooking cooking onions, you want to make sure that you get them to a place where they're really done to your satisfaction, because once you add the tomatoes in, those onions are going to stop cooking.
Right.
So really make sure that your onions are exactly where you want them. And then we just want to cook these tomatoes down until they're mushy, really.
Right.
You know, they're just letting out their juices.
The water.
Uh-huh.
Oh,
Okay.
that smells so good.
Oh my
That
gosh.
smells amazing.
I could just put my fork in
I
there
know.
right now.
I know.
So great. Okay. So these are getting there.
Yeah.
It may take just, well, I don't know, I think we could maybe put the lentils in. I've already pre-cooked our lentils. 20.
Don't you wilt that first, or then you put the lentils in? Or you do it
No,
all
so I put this in here.
Oh, got it.
Yeah.
Then add the lentils.
Yeah, because remember, we want to cook our oxalates
Right.
out of.
That's
Yeah.
right. That's right. That's right.
Okay.
So you just wilt those down a few minutes, and awesome.
Yeah. All right, so what we're going to do now is I'm just going to add 1 handful of spinach. Now, there's so much water in spinach, right? So it will cook down pretty quickly. And I'm going to add a little bit of water just to give it some help.
Yeah, it's funny. You see this huge bowl of spinach, and then you think, "Oh my God, it's not going to fit." And then when you're done, it's
like this little tiny,
a little bit, yeah.
Which is really great because then you can get so many of the phytonutrients that spinach holds without having to eat it and eat it and eat it, right?
So it is interesting. There's been a couple celebrities who tried to go on a plant-based diet, and they stopped because they had a kidney stone. But the mistake they were making was they were taking like all that spinach and without cooking it, and blending it into a smoothie every morning, right?
Right.
And that's a tremendous load of oxalates, right? And so that's not something you really want to do. And so that's why cooking your spinach. It's okay to have a little spinach salad every now and then.
Yeah.
But really, especially if you've got a history of kidney stones, the key is really cooking it like this. And again, it only has to be for a couple minutes.
Okay, you can't even, I put a huge handful in there.
Right. Barely see it.
Okay, so I am going to ask you to help me. We're going to put all of our lentils, our yellow split lentils, in.
Moong dal.
Yes, moong dal. And we're going to mix all of this. Oh my gosh, I know.
You may have outdone yourself on this
We love it, Indian food so much.
Yeah.
Okay,
this is just such a warming, inviting dish, and the smells and everything. Wow.
It feels like a big hearty meal, except you're not getting the big hearty calories.
Right, that's exactly right.
And almost zero
hearty
fat.
Fiber, though,
yeah,
right?
Lots of hearty fiber. Now, this is garam masala, and I'm going to add this right
That's
here.
just an Indian spice mix, right? And it has a lot. I think as many, and it's kind of like curry powder or chili powder. I mean, there's hundreds of different recipes, and I think every family in India has their own recipe for garam masala.
Probably so, yeah. Now, this just sits and cooks down for 5-7 minutes. Let all those flavors come together, and then we can serve it up.
All right, so we'll be right back.
Yep. So we actually ended up adding another handful of spinach because, as you said, it just totally wilts down. It looked like there wasn't anything in there. So 2 big handfuls of spinach, cooked it down for about 5-7 minutes or so, and added a little bit of cilantro for another little flavor profile. And okay, I'm going to quit talking.
Yeah,
I'm going to take it.
I know. I've been dying. I'm surprised I'm not drooling here because it smells so good.
And we could serve this up with some rice or some naan if you wanted to, but okay, clearly you're just going to dig right in.
Okay. Cheers.
All right, cheers. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.